Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You know, you have no credibility. Please go ahead.
President Trump, thank you so much. How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible. And I just asked the president, you know, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders. Open borders. You probably hear open borders and you can't even understand it because nobody can understand. Nobody smart or with common sense can understand it. So we have millions of people that should not be in this country that are dangerous, not just people, because we have people, but we have millions of people that are murderers, drug dealers. They've been allowed to come into our country by other countries that were very smart. When they heard that this very low IQ president, and by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark, and one of the doctors said, sir, I've never seen anybody get that kind of, that was the highest mark. I hope you're happy with that, although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I noticed there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, sir, would you like to take a cognitive test? I said, did Biden take one? No. Did anybody take one? No, not too many people took them. I said, what about Obama? Did he take one? No, he didn't take one either. I said, let me be the only one to take one. But I've actually taken them 3 times already. I like taking them because they're not too tough for me to take. But we had a great physical exam, so I know you're going to ask that. And the doctors who are total professionals, Walter Reed Medical Center, they're great people. And I visited a soldier that was badly wounded, incredible soldier, lost his leg, and spent a lot of time with him. I mean, great with his mother, and it was really a very great thing. They do a phenomenal job. I just want to say, Walter Reed, I was there for, 5-6 hours. You were there with me. But I took a full physical, and it came out perfecto, so it's good. That means you've got me for a little longer.
Would you also be willing to pay for those facilities to be opened if new ones were going to be built?
I'd do something. We'd help them out. Yeah, we help them. They're great facilities, very strong facilities, and they don't play games. I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay?
And do you think more presidents should follow suit like you guys as far as taking a hard stance on crime here in the United States?
Oh, I do. I think everybody has to. I mean, the president said it better than anybody. He said, you know, you have liberty and you have to have liberty, but to have liberty, not everybody is going to be good. And, you know, some are bad because they're sick. They're mentally deranged. They're bad. Then you have to take them. If you're going to have a country, you're going to have to take those people out. And we've been doing that. But this was like an unforced error, they would call it, where we had people that may hate our country, or maybe they're just stupid people. I think they're probably stupid people more so. A lot of people said they did it for the vote. But I did better with Hispanic people than they did, because they always use Hispanic. I did better. You people love me. I saw my poll numbers in your country up through the roof, right? 91%. Some people think they do it for the vote. But they don't have to do it for the vote. They cheat, you know, they're professional cheaters. That's about the only thing they do well. So we just have had a great relationship, and it's become bigger because of a strange thing has happened. You know, I came back We had no war in Ukraine. We had no war we had no October 7th Middle East problem. We had nothing. We had no inflation. We didn't have the Afghanistan, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, the Afghanistan, not withdrawing, because I would have been, I had it all set to bring people out with dignity and pride. That was the worst, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan. We didn't have any of that. You wouldn't have had the war with Russia, Ukraine. You wouldn't have had the Middle East problem because Iran was broke. They had no money because we had secondary sanctions on and lots of other sanctions. And now every single thing, got a problem with Iran, but I'll solve that problem. That's almost an easy one. We got to solve a war that should have never started, Ukraine and Russia, and we'll get that solved. And we have to solve problems, and we already solved inflation. If you look at the numbers are incredible, actually. The stock market's up, and we're not letting other countries take advantage of this country like they have for the last 40 years. So thank you very much. You have a question, please?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you so much. You scored another major investment win this morning when Nvidia pledged to build its AI supercomputer, the first time ever, right here in the United States.
That's a question I like. That's true.
What is your reaction to this announcement, sir, and how will this positively benefit Americans across the country?
Well, it's one of the biggest announcements you'll ever hear, because Nvidia, as you know, controls that almost the entire sector, which is one of the most important sectors in the world, between chips and semiconductors and everything else. And they're the biggest. And the other biggest we already have coming in and spending $300 billion, as you know. They announced 2 weeks ago. But Nvidia is so highly respected. And this was an announcement that a lot of people, I knew it was going to happen, but not to the extent that it happened. It's big. And the reason they did it is because of the election on November 5th and because of a thing called tariffs, as I say, the most beautiful word in the dictionary. After love, God, relationship, the press actually hit me and said, tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. What about family, love, God? So I got hit even on that. You understand? I said, okay. So now I say it's my fifth most favorite word because they get you on anything. But that Nvidia, it's one of the great companies of the world, modern, super modern companies, controls segments that nobody, sort of controls the world in a sense, and they're coming in here in the biggest way with hundreds of billions of dollars. Not like millions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, and I'm honored by it. And I want to thank Jensen and all of the people that we deal with. They're great people, they're brilliant people. And without tariffs, they wouldn't be doing it. Okay? Thank you very much.
Are you considering additional sanctions against Russia after their latest attack? And do you have an update on the rate and when you might announce semiconductor
Well, I already
tariffs?
have sanctions on Russia. I put them there. If you remember, Nord Stream 2, that's the big pipeline that goes through Europe. I stopped it. That's Russia's pipeline, the largest pipeline, I think, in the world. It goes to Germany. And I stopped it. And when Biden came in, he approved it. And then they say, oh, I'm friendly with Russia. No. Putin said, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you when you're my enemy. I stopped the biggest economic job they ever had. I stopped it cold, right? It was dead. You know that, right? And Biden came in and he immediately approved it. What was that all about? And it's a pipeline that takes care of a lot of the needs. Now, it was a very controversial thing, but I stopped it, and Biden approved it. Question?
On tariffs?
No, not you.
Update today on potential semiconductor tariffs and potentially pharmaceuticals. Semiconductor tariffs and potentially pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals we're going to do. We don't make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China. And all I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, it's very simple. It's inversely proportional. The higher the tariff, the faster they come. And yeah, we're going to be doing that. That's going to be like we have on cars. We have, as you know, a 25% tariff on cars. We have a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. And that's what that category fits right now.
Do you have a percentage in mind and a timeline?
I have a timeline, yeah, not too distant future. We're doing it because we want to make our own drugs. We're doing it because we want to make our own steel and aluminum, lumber, other things. And they're all coming in. We have record numbers, $7 trillion. Since I announced, like a month and a half ago, since I came in, we have over $7 trillion being invested in the country. We didn't have $1 trillion. We didn't have $500 billion with some of these guys. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. So we have the largest investment that we've ever heard of, and we're only 2 months in. And that'll continue at levels that you've never seen before. That's what's going to happen. And even the stock market's up today. It's we also had, you know, we a lot of people didn't say it the way it was. We had the largest gain in the stock market in history on every single category last week. That was a nice game because we were getting a little hit because people didn't understand the power of our country economically if you use it right. Do you have something to say on that, JD?
Yes, sir. I mean, look, for 40 years, we have lost manufacturing capacity. Workers have seen their wages stagnate. And some of the most critical things that we need, from the pharmaceuticals, the drugs that we give to our children, the antibiotics that we give to our kids, to the weapons that we actually need to fight a war, if God forbid we had to fight a war, we don't make enough of that stuff. And so President Trump ran explicitly on changing that. Yes, as the president mentioned, it caused a little bit of disruption in the market, but I actually think over the long term, workers are going to benefit, stocks are going to go up, American businesses are going to benefit as we reinvest and reindustrialize our country.
And the auto workers and the Teamsters and all of the unions, you know, not traditionally Republican, but I'm winning those unions by, we're up 40, 50 points on the Democrats. They're losing everything. They're losing everything because they just have policies that are not believable. They fight for policies that are 5% popular, and nobody knows who the 5% are. I mean, nobody can find the 5%. But if you go back to Ohio, and by the way, we have the great championship team from Ohio coming in today, right?
Very big day.
And that's going to be a little bit later. And that'll be, if you want to stick around, I'll introduce you to some nice people. You'll see some very large people, right? You'll see some people that even you have not seen people like this. These are big. These are 6'7", 380 pounds with no fat. Okay, that's pretty good. Right? But the team, the national championship team, is being honored today at the White House, so that'll be exciting. If you're around, you want to stay around, I'll have you up there. You can tell them all about your prison, how you have to behave. Okay. Who else?
Where are those exemptions on electronics?
You said yesterday that you're making a decision on Iran very quickly. What do you mean by that? Is that a decision to strike Iran?
Or? Their problem very quickly. Iran wants to deal with us, but they don't know how. They really don't know how. We had a meeting with them on Saturday. We have another meeting scheduled next Saturday. I said, that's a long time. You know, that's a long time. So I think that might be tapping us along. But Iran has to get rid of the concept of a nuclear weapon. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. He can't have a nuclear weapon. Nobody can have. We can't have anybody having nuclear weapons, you know. We can't have nuclear weapons. And I think they're tapping us along because we're so used to dealing with stupid people in this country. And I had Iran perfect. You had no attacks. You would have never had October 7th in Israel, the attack by Hamas, because Iran was broke. They were stone cold broke when I was president. And I don't want to do that. I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us, I'm doing it for the world. And these are radicalized people, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Does that include a potential strike on Iranian nuclear facilities?
Of course it does.
And just a follow-up question, a clarification. You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones, too. And I'm all for it. Because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in. And I made the statement when I heard about this a long time ago now, 4 years ago. When I heard that this guy was having open borders, I said every single criminal from all over the world is going to be dumped into our country. And that's what happened. The jails of the Congo were emptied out. The jails of Venezuela were emptied out. And you know what happened? Their crime went way down. But now Venezuela has other problems. You know what the problem is? They have no money. Yeah. Because I shut off their oil and we put secondary tariffs because they're not doing what's right over there. They know what to do. We spoke to them. I spoke to them. They know what to do. But they have no money. Venezuela has no money. But Iran had no money. And Iran behaved so beautifully. And then Biden took all those secondary tariffs on. I told China, you can't buy oil. If you buy oil from Iran, China, I told it to President Xi, then we no longer want you to do business with the United States of America. And those ships disappeared from that harbor so quickly. China. Get along great with China.
Are the talks with Iran productive? Do you want to continue that?
What?
The talks with Iran, do you believe those are productive? Do you want to continue that?
I think Iran could be a great country as long as it doesn't have nuclear weapons. If they have nuclear weapons, they'll never get a chance to be a great country. They will never get a chance. It won't even come close.
Sir, on tariffs?
Yeah.
Yesterday you mentioned short-lived product exemptions. Which specific products are you considering, and how long is short-lived? Weeks, months?
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places, and they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here. But they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that.
What about any Apple products, other cell phones?
Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible. And you have to be. You just can't have a wall and you'll only go. No, sometimes you have to go around it, under it, or above it. There'll be maybe things coming up. I speak to Tim Cook. I helped Tim Cook recently, and that whole business. I don't want to hurt anybody, but the end result is we're going to get to the position of greatness for our country. We're the greatest economic power in the world if we're smart. If we're not smart, we're going to hurt our country very badly. We lost with China over the Biden years trillions of dollars on trade. Trillions of dollars. And he let them fleece us. And we can't do that anymore. And you know what? I don't blame China at all. I don't blame President Xi. I like him. He likes me. I mean, who knows? Who the hell cares?
Do you have any updates on talks?
But you know what? What?
Do you have any updates with talks with China?
No, let me just tell you this. I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see they're meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. They're meeting, like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America. Don't forget, the European Union was formed to do just that. The European Union was formed to hurt the United States and on trade. And they get us on NATO because they don't pay their bills. But now, since I got involved, they have been paying their bills. I took in over $600 billion for NATO. Nobody took in anything. I mean, they were all delinquent. They had 8 nations out of 28 paid their bills. The rest of them were way delinquent. And I said, if you don't pay your bills, we're not going to protect you anymore. And the money poured in, over 600. The Secretary General last week made that statement. He said, I've never seen anything like it. We couldn't get anybody to pay because the United States was footing the bill for NATO. Well, we got hurt there, and we got hurt on trade, likewise, European Union. And they've got to come to the table, and they're trying to. But the European Union has taken terrible advantage. They don't take our food products. They don't take our cars. We have millions of their cars, BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, many others. They come in by the millions. They don't take. There are no Chevrolets in Munich, I can tell you that. I said to Angela Merkel when she was there, as she was letting millions of people infiltrate Germany, which was not so good from, we would call them illegal immigrants, but she made them legal. But I said to her, and I get along with her very well, I said, how many Chevrolets do we have in Munich or Frankfurt? Why, none, Donald, none. I said, you're right. And yet we take in millions and millions of cars. No, those days are over. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President. Thank you, guys. Mr. President, do you have any comment on the FTC?
That was President Trump alongside El Salvador's president. He's receiving El Salvador's president at the White House. You heard the remarks, really a wide-ranging conversation there. We'll have more on that throughout the morning. Now, though, let's get you back to the Charlie Kirk Show.
This has been a live special report. We now join our programming already in progress.
China can say no rare earth minerals. Look at all the stuff that China could say that we are no longer going to import because of how stupid our leaders have been. No more rebar, no more steel wire, no more sheets, no more pipes, no more bearings, no more gears, no more motors, no more compressors, no more sheets, no more tubing, no more engine parts, no more vitamin C, vitamin D, multivitamins or herbal blends, no more antibiotics, painkillers, blood pressure medication, no more thermometers, oxygen monitors, pulse oximeters, and blood pressure monitors. Not to mention all the rare earth minerals that I mentioned. How about this one? No more circuit boards, no more resistors, no more power suppliers, no more switches, no more drills, no more fasteners, no more wrenches, no more saws, no more toolkits. Oh, this is one that Emma will love. No more fertilizer. So, such as phosphate and even glyphosate. No more of that. So China they decided to corner the fertilizer market. That's right. They are the world's largest exporter of nitrogen and phosphate-based fertilizer. Pretty important. Disruptions would immediately affect crop yields. Or how about drone components? Do you know that the components that we put into drones, almost all made in China? And this is where Milton Friedman was mistaken. Hate to say it, love his book, Capitalism and Freedom. He's right 99% of the time. He's a hero of mine. And in this beautiful, almost poetic video that we are about to watch, Milton Friedman talks about the beauty of international markets. He says, look at how this pencil is put together. None of these people knew each other, and they all worked in harmony to put together the pencil, and everything he says is true, except Milton Friedman, except what if one of those components or one of those actors decides to stop trading with you because we've become so reliant on them. And Milton Friedman would say, well, then it's not in their best interest. And actually, China could outlast us. They could. They're a totalitarian government. Experts sometimes say the winner of the next war is whoever can make drones the fastest. China could outproduce us 100 to 1. 1,000 to 1 maybe. And other than President Trump, there is no push for us to actually modernize our industrial capacity. Here's Milton Friedman, and I'm going to show you why he's wrong. Play cut 133.
Look at this lead pencil. There's not a single person in the world who could make this pencil. Remarkable statement? Not at all. The wood from which it's made, for all I know, comes from a tree that was cut down in the state of Washington. To cut down that tree, it took a saw. To make the saw, it took steel. To make the steel, it took iron ore. We call it lead, but it's really graphite, compressed graphite. I'm not sure where it comes from, but I think it comes from some mines in South America. This red top up here, the eraser, bit of rubber, probably comes from Malaya, where the rubber tree isn't even native. It was imported from South America by some businessmen, or the yellow paint, or the paint that made the black lines, or the glue that holds it together. Literally thousands of people cooperated to make this pencil. People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions, who might hate one another if they ever met. When you go down to the store and buy this pencil, you are in effect trading a few minutes of your time for a few seconds of the time of all those thousands of people.
Let me do the modern day version of the Milton Friedman pen or pencil. Well, this little rubber thing on the end of my pen, that came from China. And this part of the Pilot G220 was made in China. And the ink, that was also mined in China. And the rare earth mineral that actually cast all together was made in China. You see here, this pen right here was made by a bunch of zealots halfway around the world that hate us, want to murder us, and take over the world, all from a singular country called China. Abstract philosophical ideas often unravel when confronted with the unpredictable weight of real life. And only President Trump is standing up for America against our greatest enemy. Stephen Moore joins us next.
back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. Another busy day is already underway at the White House as President Trump is hosting El Salvador's president. In fact, the two are holding bilateral meetings as we speak right now. The president and El Salvador's president hosting the media just moments ago. Of course, one of the focuses was illegal immigration here in this country, more specifically as it relates to El Salvador. The fact that the United States is deporting, gang members to an El Salvador prison. Those were what many of the questions to the president and the president of El Salvador focused on. Later on at the White House, the Ohio State University Buckeyes will be visiting with President. The national football champions will get an opportunity to meet with President Trump to celebrate their victory. All of that happening later on this afternoon. In the meantime, the White House is on the offensive when it comes to illegal aliens. Speaking outside the People's House earlier this morning, Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller blasting the media over its criticism of the administration and its deportation efforts.
And I just wish we lived in a country where the media gave to 1/10 a damn as much about Americans who were murdered and brutalized and savagely killed, beaten to death, as they did about whether illegal aliens that we all agree are illegal aliens should get a million days in court and a million trials and a million this and a million that. There's 15 million illegal aliens that violently enter the country. If every one of them got the trial that you're asking for, it would take us centuries to remove them. Centuries. We've been talking about this in 300-400 years. Their great-great-great-grandchildren would be the ones representing them in court. That's how long it would take. Illegal aliens who come to our country have to be removed, and they have to be removed quickly. That is an essential component of having something that we like to call a country.
The Trump administration also set to launch a national security trade investigation into imported semiconductors and microchips. The move would mostly affect technology from East Asia like China and from Taiwan. It also sets the stage for future tariffs on smartphones, computers, and other electronic imports. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says new tariffs separate from President Trump's reciprocal tariffs will eventually be levied on those products. Secretary Lutnick going on to say that details on the new tariffs are expected to be rolled out this week. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'm Terrence Bates.
The next great awakening is here. Welcome back to the Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. We're here at the Bitcoin.com studio. MyPatriotSupply.com. That is MyPatriotSupply.com. You've heard me talk about My Patriot Supply because I trust them when it comes to my family's well-being. And I just got word they're doing something they've never done before. Right now, you get the best-selling Mega 3-month emergency food supply for the same price as the standard kit. That's more than $360 of real beef, real chicken, plus farm fresh fruits and vegetables included at no extra charge. Even better, this kit gives you 2,500 calories per day. This kit will be there when you need them. It stays fresh for up to 25 years, and it ships fast and discreetly. Go to MyPatriotSupply.com and claim your mega kit while this offer lasts. Go to MyPatriotSupply.com. Portions of the Charlie Kirk Show are brought to you part by My Patriot Supply. That is MyPatriotSupply.com. MyPatriotSupply.com. You are 9 meals away from anarchy. Prepare yourself. MyPatriotSupply.com. Joining us now is Stephen Moore, great friend, former Trump senior economic advisor, president of Unleash Prosperity, and author of The Trump Economic Miracle. Steve, great to see you. Thank you for taking the time. So, Steve, I'm not as interested in talking to you about the tariff stuff because I think that's all going to be settled. Instead, I want to talk about what you are advocating for on the domestic unleashing prosperity side. Because in order for us to have an economic boom, of course, we need to figure out all the trade stuff. But most importantly, we must have a robust pro-growth, hopefully historic tax package. What are you hoping and what can we expect to come out of Congress from no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, making the Trump tax cuts permanent, and talk about the significance and the profundity of locking in those wins?
Well, great to be with you, Charlie. And one of the reasons I wanted to come on your show is that before we get into all the good stuff in the tax bill, I want to alert you and your listeners to something I'm hearing that I think is very dangerous. And we need to get all conservatives to shout out against this, which is that there are some in Congress, some Republicans who want to raise the top income tax rate. That would be a total disaster for those of us who are old enough to remember when George H.W. Bush raised taxes. And remember, read my lips. It split the party. It did great damage to the economy, and it led to the election of Bill Clinton. So Republicans would be making a major mistake if they raised the top rate. In fact, every time in history, by the way, my buddy Art Laffer has a great book out on this called Taxes Have Consequences. Every time we've raised tax rates, the economy has gone into recession. The rich have actually paid less taxes, and the burden has shifted to lower income people. This is not a way to help America, and I just wanted to get that out there. So I want your listeners to call your congressman or senator, say, do not raise tax rates on anyone. That's not what we do as Republicans.
I agree with that. I want to try to build this out further. So I am at the top income. The show does very well. So, okay, lower taxes. What is, though, the macro argument for someone right now that says, hey, why shouldn't Elon Musk,
right.
So let's build out how does lower taxes for a wealthier person impact the welder or the electrician?
Yeah. That's a great question. And by the way, Elon Musk has a better answer to that than I am. You may have seen him a month or two. He was asked that same question, Charlie. He said, look, who do you trust to invest in the American economy better? Someone like me that he was talking about himself, who's created, tens and tens of thousands of jobs and some of the greatest businesses ever, or politicians. So the people who are the job creators and the wealth producers in our economy are people at the top. They've gotten to the top because they're smart. They run, by the way, over half of all small businesses pay their taxes on the individual income tax rate. Do we want to be taxing the small businessmen and women in the country? So it doesn't work. And the other thing about the rich, and this is also in Laffer's book, is that they're smart. They have tax lawyers. They have a tax accountants. They're not going to pay these higher rates. They're going to find ways around it. And what happens is the tax burden really gets smashed onto the poor. So we don't want to do it. Reagan cut tax rates to the lowest rates we'd had in 75 years. We had the biggest boom ever. Trump cut tax rates. We had a big boom. Every time it works. It's just, look, any student of history knows that lowering tax rates is a great thing. And the last two presidents who were Republicans who raised tax rates, Herbert Hoover and George H.W. Bush, it didn't turn out too well for them.
So can you also talk to this idea of a brain drain, that we are in a competition for the world's best people, and that when you start to de-incentivize profit, then they very well might go to other countries. In the data, is brain drain drawn out, or is that just a talking point that sounds good on TV?
Oh, no. I mean, you raise a great point, Charlie. I should have said this at the outset. How do high income tax rates affect the rich? Just look across the states. How many times have you and I talked about this? If you look, just a new report came out last week showing again that California, Illinois, New York, and New Jersey are losing population at the fastest rate of any state in the country. Those tend to be the highest. California and New York have 13% income taxes. Now, that. Charlie, where do you live, by the way? Are you in Florida?
I live in Arizona, so it's better than California. But we're working to we're working to sunset our income tax here. We don't have it yet. But it's
that was the point I was going to make.
Yeah,
that was the point I was going to make, is that you have states like Tennessee, Texas, Florida that have no income tax, and they're booming. Arizona's got a pretty good low income tax rate. That's working for them. So this is a very positive thing for the low tax states. And California could lose 3 new congressional seats if they stay on the course they're on.
That's right. So in the spirit of raising taxes, here's one that I go back and forth on. And I want to get your opinion, which is the carried interest loophole. Some on Capitol Hill are saying that we have to close it. Some are saying that Trump already fixed it. What is the carried interest deduction, and how do you stand on that? And what is the potential impact that it could have on the economy at large?
Well, I'm glad you asked about that. Literally, just this morning, I finished writing my weekly column on that very issue. So you must be clairvoyant. But, look, I'm not going to get into the weeds on this. This is the private equity industry, which is what pumps money into small businesses, family businesses to keep them alive or to allow them to grow into bigger businesses. We are almost unique as a country in having this incredible private equity industry that injects capital into smaller and medium-sized companies so they can grow. And it works. It's an amazing thing. It's created like 20 million jobs through this private investment capital. And we don't want to tax that more. Look, it's very simple. If you tax something, you get less of it, right? If you tax, that's what Reagan taught us. Why would we want less equity going into small and growing businesses? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the argument that the other guys would say is, but it's a fat cat loophole made and designed for Wall Street, and it's used and abused. I
don't buy that.
No, build out further, because I trust your judgment on this.
Basically, we have two tax rates. We have capital gains tax, which is too high. We tax that at 24%. And then the personal income tax, which is taxed right now at 37%. So what these people want to do, and this is basically people like, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and some Republicans, they said, well, we should tax these people at the personal income tax rate, not the capital gains rate, which is, to me, I don't even get the logic of that. These companies, when a private equity person puts money into a company, that's at-risk capital. They're at risk of losing it all. That's why we have a lower capital gains rate, because it's a riskier investment.
So now, speaking more broadly, let's talk about energy policy and other elements of the bill. So we want to see the Trump tax cuts locked in. What exactly does that mean? Make the Trump tax cuts permanent. The left is losing their mind. They're saying it's a tax cut for the rich. What would it mean if the Trump tax cuts are not made permanent?
So, first of all, that's a really important question, because I think we did a poll that half of Americans are not aware of this, because, a lot of Americans just don't pay a lot of close attention to this. If they don't get this job done, Charlie, we're talking about the biggest tax increase in American history on January 1st, because all of the Trump tax cuts would go away, and virtually all of them. And so the average family in America, now, I'm not talking about Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and, Elon Musk. I'm talking about the average family would face a $3,000 increase in their taxes next year. We can't do that. We've already got, middle-class families financially stressed out from Bidenomics. Can you imagine if the average family had to pay $3,000 more taxes? And then, of course, the corporate rate would go up to 21% to one of the highest in the world, 35%. That's one of the great achievements of the Trump tax cut. So we don't want to have that happen. We've got to get this done. We've got it done quickly. I'm telling Congress, get it done, get a bill on the desk of Donald Trump by Memorial Day. We've seen a choppy stock market. Investors are fidgety. I think one thing that would really help restore investor confidence is for Republicans to sign, seal, and deliver this in the next month.
Steve, so let's talk now about heavy machinery deduction. The left will attack about this, saying, oh, this is just a private jet deduction. What does a heavy machinery deduction mean for the economy at large, and also for people that work with their hands, machinists, welders, people that are fixing automobiles? And what does the data show about a 100% depreciation for heavy machinery?
Oh, it's amazing that we even have to talk about this, because it's so obvious. If a business invests in a factory or invests in the kind of machinery you're talking about, I mean, a welder can't weld if he doesn't have the equipment to weld with, right? I mean, they don't have a job if they don't have the equipment. If there aren't factories, there aren't jobs. So we absolutely want to allow companies, not to just allow them, to encourage them to invest in factories, in machinery, and computers. Those those are what make American workers more productive. It's the reason, it's our capital investment and our know-how that makes the American workers the most highly paid workers in the world. So we ought to say, if a company builds a factory, you can write it off. If you have, heavy equipment like you're talking about, if you're buying I talked to Fred Smith, who owns Federal Express, one of the great companies in America. And he's saying once they allowed that deduction, they bought 4 jumbo jets so that they could transport packages around the world. Think of all the jobs that created for the Boeing workers.
Yep. Steve, in closing here, about 30 seconds remaining, what do you think is the probability of this bill passing and getting Republicans behind a pro-growth agenda?
I'm going to put the odds at 85%. I think it's going to get done. The sooner, the better. And I think that it's going to be a very positive development for the stock market and for workers. And no tax increases in that bill. No tax increases.
Steve Moore, thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you, Charlie.
Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. We'll be right back.
Patriots love him. Leftists hate him. Nobody ignores him. It's the Charlie Kirk Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. We are going to be on campus tomorrow at Boise State University. In between that, we'll also be in Colorado. On Wednesday, I will be going on Bill Maher's podcast. Looking forward to that. Bill Maher had a phenomenal intro to his show, his HBO show back on Friday. Really, I'm liking to see kind of where Bill Maher is going. He has been very principled being against the woke, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. This is for his podcast, not for the HBO show, so doing a long form, that'll be on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we have Washington State University in Pullman, Washington, which is a really great spot. And then I'm going to be doing Doug Wilson's show in Moscow, Idaho after that. Then, of course, it's Good Friday, so we're kind of taking it easy. We'll still be broadcasting on Friday, but it will be very religious in tone. And then we'll be back the following week with an event at Texas A&M University during the week. And then we also have University of Wyoming as well. So boom, A&M and University of Wyoming. And we're just going to keep on moving and grooving. I'll tell you, the crowds we are seeing and the support is phenomenal. And the views that we are getting online of thirsty and hungry young people that want the truth is truly remarkable. And so, as we say, tyranny never sleeps, and neither do we, but I do need to get my 9 hours a night. So it's more metaphorical. I mean, just look at the support that we are seeing. I mean, the amount of RSVPs we have at Boise State University is pretty remarkable. It's really something. That's Michigan State right there last week. That was a really good one. You're going to love to see that footage there. Really, really something. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com and make sure you take out your phone right now and subscribe to our podcast. It's free of charge. It's high impact. Subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. I'm going to quickly do the Herzog Foundation, but I need to talk about something very quick. Go to readlion.com. That is readlion.com. The Herzog Foundation is a wonderful way that you guys can stay connected. That is readlion.com. Again, are you rethinking your kid's educational path? If so, check it out at readlion.com. Visit readlion.com to access must-read articles. And don't forget to sign up for the Lion's daily and weekly newsletters. That's readlion.com. Stay informed, stay equipped, and shape your child's future. Portions of the Charlie Kirk Show are brought to you in part by the Herzog Foundation and the Lion. Okay, everybody. Unlike Joe Biden and unlike prior presidents, we have the president's health report right here. It's 3 pages long. And let me tell you, President Trump is objectively very healthy. I've seen President Trump eat ways that I would not eat. I'm a very careful eater. And I'll tell you, this guy is the exception. He is not the rule. At 78 years old and 10 months, nearly 79, he is 75 inches, so a strong 6'3", 224 pounds. His resting heart rate is 62 beats per minute. Let me just pause there. That is a very, very good resting heart rate. Like, very good. His blood pressure is an exceptional 128/74. It's awfully desirable. That's desirable if you're 31 years old, considering the stress that he's under. His pulse ox is 99% on room air and a perfect temperature of 98.6. No issues with his eyes, his head, ears, nose, or throat, neck, or pulmonary. His lungs were clear. CT scan of his chest shows no abnormalities. And the most remarkable of all is his cholesterol levels. Despite President Trump being known for liking a good sundae and having a good Trump burger, his total cholesterol is 140 mg. The optimal, of course, is under 200. His triglycerides is 56 milligrams under the normal level, which is where his good cholesterol is 77. His bad cholesterol is 51, all very desirable. And then his metabolic panel. I'm big into blood work. I try to do blood work 4 or 5 times a year. His metabolic panel is phenomenal. His blood work, his glucose level, little high, but not in bad territory. It's 89 out of 99. His hemoglobin is great, 5.2, a little bit on the higher normal, but still perfectly fine. His vitamin B12 is perfect. And I don't think Trump has taken vitamin B12 shots. I could be wrong. His PSA is normal. THS, normal. Urinalysis, perfectly fine. He's only had 1 surgery in his life, which was an appendectomy at age 11. That was probably pretty traumatic. My favorite of all of it, though, you say, how is he so healthy? I have an opinion. I have 3 reasons why President Trump is so healthy. It's not because of his diet. He does walk a fair amount when he golfs and he's walking around. He's very active. But there are 3 reasons why President Trump objectively is in probably some of the best health you'll ever find a president. When you are trying to end the Russian-Ukrainian war, when you are trying to close an invasion on the southern border, and your blood pressure is 128/74, I'm impressed. I got to tell you, I am impressed. There are 3 reasons I attribute this to. Number 1, he's got great genes. Sorry, if you guys want to get healthy, part of it is just genes. Your genetics, who you come from. He's got phenomenal genealogy. Number 2, he has purpose. I have found the people that live the longest and are the healthiest. They have a mission. They have a zeal for life that supersedes everything else. It's almost as if you invisibly communicate with all of your trillions of cells, meaning, keep me healthy, keep me alive. He has meaning, and he has filled that existential void with a mission to save the United States of America. And the third reason as to why his cholesterol is very healthy and his blood pressure is great, and yes, he takes some cholesterol statins and all that, which of course is 78, it's no big deal, but it's the most obvious on the entire report that is just glaring, that cannot be overlooked. Lifelong abstinence from tobacco and alcohol. The facts are the facts, everybody. Now, if you want to go drink, go drink. You want to smoke. But if you want to be 78, running the free world with 5 kids worth billions of dollars and have blood pressure that's better than your average 28-year-old out of the street, don't drink and don't smoke, kids. You too can become the leader of the free world. Looking at Donald Trump, 78 years old, 6'3", 224. We might lose Donald Trump to the NFL draft in 2 weeks, and this guy's going to play for the Tennessee Titans soon. All kidding aside, he's in fighting shape and fighting form, perfectly passing his cognitive test. And all of the suspicions around President Trump are put to bed and put to rest. That he's ready to keep on being the man in the arena. And God bless him. Second hour coming up.